Last weekend's governorship election in Osun State was keenly contested, which threw up quite a surprise and further left it in its trail. Natural expectations, winners and losers. But with a different mix like the 2018 elections, the build-up to last Saturday's elections also had placed Adeleke as the candidate to beat, including some polls which had allegedly indicated that barring any last-minute changes, the dancing senator will emerge winner. But unlike 2018, in which the political house of the ruling All Progressive Congress APC managed to pepper its cracks, the walls were completely broken down in the lead-up to this recent election. Some winners include President Muhammadu Buhari, who was arguably the #1 winner in the just concluded governorship election in Osun State. He created the environment for credible, free and fair elections through an improved electoral act that is intolerant to rigging or any form of manipulations. Others are Ademola Adeleke, mega hip-hop star David Adeleke, whose stage name is Davido, and cousin to governor-elect Atiku Abubakar, Anifeanyi Okowa, Iyorchia Ayu and PDP National Working Committee, and also Rauf Aregbesola of the APC. While topping the list of losers is the presidential candidate of the APC, Bola Tinubu, and outgoing governor Adegboyega Oyetola. In another story and new development coming out, the camp of the Osun State Governor-elect, Ademola Adeleke, is worried over suit filed by his rival in the People's Democratic Party, Prince Dotun Babayemi, at the Court of Appeal, Akure. Members of the group on Monday admitted that the suit constituted danger to the PDP's victory at the Osun State governorship election on Saturday, adding that the party had begun reconciliation with Babayemi. Members of the Adeleke camp who spoke to reporters included Osun State Acting PDP Chairman Dr. Adekunle Akindele, the Director of Media, Osun State PDP, Oladele Oluwabamiji, and the Secretary of the PDP Legal Committee, Hashim Abioye. It was gathered that Adeleke's camp was concerned that the external forces could exploit the case to truncate the party's victory. A lot to talk about.
Well, I'll start with the potential challenge to Governor-elect Adeleke's victory. He should be worried because this is exactly what happened in 2018. After he won the election, there was a rerun that was called, and then he took the matter to court where he lost spectacularly at the Supreme Court on a technicality. So, you know, he's clearly had this terrible experience before, so he's probably, we don't want this recurring trauma to happen. But with regards to the first story about the winners and losers, I remember JFK, John Kennedy, after the Bay of Pigs fiasco, saying success has many fathers, but failure is an orphan. But this day article is the opposite. Success has many fathers, but so does failure, because it went on to just break down all the people and parties and stakeholders who played a part in Adeleke's victory and also in Oyetola's defeat. And it started off as one of the success stories, the winners and the losers, as it were. Winner, President Buhari, was right on top of the list. Now, I personally don't believe in making another man the hero of somebody else's story. Adeleke should be at the top of that list. But, like I said yesterday, it's an important part of President Muhammadu Buhari's legacy. I mean, we were talking about my children earlier. When I talk to my children, I tell them all the time that every action that you take, you're building a brick. You're building a house brick by brick with every action that you take. And the house that you're building for yourself will either be a palace or a prison. So this electoral victory and the swift response from President Muhammadu Buhari being so, you know, charitable, so gracious, and swiftly congratulating the opposition party is a brick that's going to form the house of the Buhari legacy. So that's very good for him. And also the fact that he did sign that all-important electoral amendment, without which what we saw in Osun State might not have been possible. We're talking a lot about how rigging used to be just so common in this country, ballot snatching, all kinds of other electoral evils. A thing of the past now. Obviously, we're not quite at Uhuru, but because President Muhammadu Buhari signed that act, it is going to form an important part of his legacy. And obviously then the winner himself, Ademola Adeleke, I just talked about briefly, the travails he went through to get to this long, you know, road to victory. So this is a really euphoric moment for him, I imagine. Then Davido, it just goes to show as well, celebrity is his own form of currency. He was so supportive of his uncle, and we talk about different types of influence. It doesn't have to be political influence, just cultural influence. That soft power, we saw how he wielded it masterfully to great effect on behalf of his uncle. The Atiku Okowa ticket as well, in spite of all the criticisms from certain quarters, delivered. Iyorchia Ayu calls for him to step down, he can rest a little bit easy at this point because he's shown his prowess politically. Bukola Saraki, that massive effort that he's been making for years now, actually, on the PDP reconciliation circuit. Former Governor Oyinlola, who came back to the fold at the last minute. The Minister of Interior, Ralph Aregbesola, his disgruntled Osun progressives, who may have contributed to this victory as well. INEC, everybody has been praising INEC. We've seen our electoral process improve in leaps and bounds. The Abdulsalam and Bishop Kuka Peace Committee, we've also seen the work that they have done in minimizing the violence. Everybody was a bit worried with the attack on Honorable Lasun Yusuf's house, but those worries were sort of allayed on the day itself, which is great. Now the losers. This day has put Bola Tinubu as #1 loser, which I also find strange because it's really not directly his defeat, it's Governor Oyetola's, but he's up there. Governor Oyetola, obviously, and just the kind of chaos that campaign witnessed, and the fact that really Osun State people did not forget what happened in 2018. They did support Senator Adeleke, and they proved that that support had not waned in the slightest. Former Governor of Ekiti State, Ayo Fayose, is named there as well. And Nyesom Wike and his little coterie of governors Ikpeazu and Otom, Seyi Makinde, basically all people who seem to have overestimated their own importance in the party. You flounced off in a half, you're being quite intractable, thinking the show will not go on without you. Well, it did. And then just APC's leadership and the governors. We had, obviously, APC's leader, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, on another show on this program, in denial about the fact that the Osun State election had been lost, trying to just, postpone the inevitable moment where he's going to have to accept that. And obviously, former Senator Mishori, the fact that he was publicly booed, which I imagine might be what our Nobel laureate, Professor Wale Soyinka, might have been referring to yesterday when it was reported that he talked about sort of the ghost of Bola Ige. So there's a lot of karmic retribution going on here with these elections.
Sabati?
Okay. Well, in any election at all, there will be winners, there will be losers. Okay, because elections are meant to be won and lost. And every political party, would certainly want to win and not lose. But at the end of the day, someone will win, some will lose. The lead story in this day today, yes, it's a very useful postmortem to remind us of, how the election went. And if you categorize the report, the persons who won, who have been described as winners, are obviously, and it's a no-brainer, people in the PDP camp, from the victorious candidate himself, Ademola Adeleke, to members of his family, Davido, his brother, who supported him robustly. And then, of course, the leaders of the party who all mobilized to go to Osogbo to provide support. And then the team led by Governor Doyediri of Bayelsa and other leaders of the party like Senator Bukola Saraki, who stayed there throughout until after the election to express solidarity and to underscore the importance of that election, the last major poll before the 2023 elections. Then, of course, losers. Obviously, the governor will be described as a loser, and then Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State and his supporters, his friends, who stayed away both from the mega rally of the People's Democratic Party and stayed away from any kind of direct identification with that process in Osun. So it's natural to say that they are losers because it is assumed that if they thought that the party would be embarrassed in Osun State, the same way the party lost in Ekiti State, it didn't happen. This time around, the PDP won in Osun State. But beyond talking about winners and losers, I think that the big winner in all of this, the real winners, are the people of Osun State who got an opportunity to express themselves, to vote, and their votes counted. Again, because INEC has been well commended, the security agencies have been well commended. Now, the only caveat to that is that this is an off-cycle election. This is an election in just one state. So while INEC has done very well here with early arrival of materials, with the administration of the biometric verification system, and also in terms of logistics and the deployment of technology as already endorsed and prescribed by the Electoral Act 2022. INEC must note that in the general elections, when it has to deal with the entire country and conduct elections in 774 local governments and 36 states and the FCT in one day, that's when INEC will be put really to the test. And, the big takeaway for INEC from this is to continue, to work on its logistics. And then the security agencies, have also been commended. The Inspector General of Police alone deployed 21,000 policemen on the ground. Others, the military, the Amotekun, and some others, also contributed to the security situation. But I think the will of the people, prevailed. Because the people themselves, we could see how they expressed that will, their determination. Turnout was 56%. We had predicted originally that, maybe there will be voter apathy because only about 76% of the permanent voters' cards were collected. But at the end of the day, the people came out en masse, including persons who were over 100 years, who publicly expressed their commitment to the democratic process. So as an example, we could see in Osun State, the people, embracing the democratic process and, trying to defend their vote. Now, beyond all of this is now what is now emerging about the factions, as described, the faction within the People's Democratic Party. And today, another newspaper, I think is The Punch, reported efforts being made by the leaders of the PDP to appeal to Prince Diron Babayemi, I think that's his name, who is described as a factional governorship candidate of the PDP in the election, and how there are pre-election matters in court which could be exploited. That story was telling us, by external forces, to wit, by the APC in this particular instance. Well, what we're told is that the party is reaching out to Prince Babayemi to appeal to him not to act as a spoiler. More so, as Prince Olagunsoye Oyinlola, former governor of Osun State, who had supported him, that's Prince Babayemi, already congratulated Senator Ademola Adeleke. So the party is hoping that, peace moves, reconciliation within the party. And we're told that, in fact, there have been negotiations within the party to ensure that nobody within the PDP in Osun State plays into the hands of the opposition, which has already put together a team of lawyers to study the outcome of that election. And certainly, the APC in Osun State is considering going to the tribunal to challenge the election. But in terms of pre-election matters and internal issues within the PDP, now under the new Electoral Act, only a person who has taken part in the primary can challenge it. So unlike previously, when a busybody from outside the process can come and take up the legitimacy of the primary process, under the new act, that cannot be done. Second, as the matter being rendered academic, that's also to be determined. The third point, of course, has to do with the fact that there is a matter on appeal at the Federal High Court in Osogbo, at the Court of Appeal in Osogbo. Prince Babayemi went to court, filed a matter at the Federal High Court, Osogbo, which ruled against him. Senator Adeleke filed a matter at the Federal High Court in Abuja, which found in his favor, two courts finding in his favor. On the basis of that, Prince Babayemi decided to go to the Court of Appeal. Now, submissions have been made, but the court has reserved judgment in the matter. So that's the state. The last time the court had the matter was July 13. So understandably, that will cause a lot of anxiety. But what is the issue? Justice Emmanuel's court in Osogbo said that Senator Adeleke was produced through the right process, at the right venue, but by wrong delegates. Now, it was also said that the other person, Prince Babayemi, was produced by the right delegates, but at the wrong venue and by the wrong people, more or less, in terms of the conduct. And the party is saying that the process that produced Senator Ademola Adeleke was a process midwife, sanctioned, supervised by the National Working Committee of the party. The principle, therefore, is, okay, did the PDP have a validly chosen candidate in the primary that led to the election that produced the candidate? So what you are looking at is something similar to the Zamfara situation. But of course, if Babayemi withdraws the matter, then of course, that's the end of it, I guess. But you never know what rabbit the APC on the other side will pull out of the hat. But in any case, election cases are sui generis. They are governed by their own rules. They are in a special category of their own. But of course, I know that all the persons involved, would be looking at this critically.
So it has to be said, and I'm happy that this is starting to bubble up, because I deliberately asked the question yesterday from the PDP state chairman, caretaker chairman, when he came in, that I hope all the problems have been sorted out. And he said here on this show that everything has been sorted out. They've talked to everybody involved and things are sorted. But this matter is bubbling up. They should be careful. I know a lot of people have come out there to show their support for Adeleke in Osun State. He's got the love of the people, but the PDP needs to settle their internal matters. And that's why this conversation about internal democracy is not only in the APC. Because yes, a lot of people want to attribute this victory to the fact that there were internal wranglings in the APC. Aregbesola was not with a lot with Oyetola and the likes, and they lost some vital votes in places like Elisha and some other parts they would normally win. But the truth is, the PDP is not clear of internal democracy matters. Just like the PDP is still trying to sort out who is even going to be the governorship candidate in Ogun State, except if they've sorted it out. Parallel primaries, Segun Showunmi emerged, Adibutu emerged. Oh, the National Working Committee and the top echelon of the party have said, okay, it's going to be Adibutu. Somebody else feels disgruntled. And that's what has happened again here. And the PDP kept on settling this late up till the elections. So I wish them a lot of luck if they can pull it out. But if the other person says he's going to stretch it, then they should be careful. They might want to try it out in court. The opposition too has gone to court. They want to study the document. And when you even check hitherto, there's been lots of discrepancy and court cases. You remember the case about certificates?
Yes, the educational qualification.
The educational qualification of Adeleke, and how the court rules as regards that to be able to settle that. So there's been lots of back and forth across board. And that's why he should be very careful. And he should try as much as possible to build a party in his state, because he's the leader of the party now. As regards winners and losers, like everybody has said, they're going to be winners, they're going to be losers. But for me, apart from the main actors, the people that really assured this victory was the people of Osun State that came out in mass to vote. We have a country where we're always scared of voter apathy, that the voters will not come out. But they decided not just to come out, they decided to stay with their vote. I remember a particular polling unit that after voting, after counting the results, they said, oh, there was no data to transfer the result to the server. But they ensured that the result was transferred. Somebody said, you know what, I'll give you hotspot. That must go to the INEC server. And I'm really excited that we're talking about INEC server. You remember in 2018-2019 elections, leading up to the Supreme Court, the cry then was server. Where's the INEC server? Oh, it's not constituted. We don't have a server and all that. So I'm excited that actually they can call for a server now. And it has just shown that our democratic process has improved. And that's why special commendations must go to President Muhammadu Buhari. This will be part of his legacy. for signing that electoral law and ensuring that we have democracy, that we can use technology, and we can have a server that can authenticate results. Because a lot of people don't know the importance of the server now. Maybe it's during the general elections we'll know the importance of the server. As regards the format we used to have before, where some people conjure and write up the results somewhere, and once they read it out, that's it. But now we can go back and verify and check through the server. So big kudos to INEC. Also big kudos to police officials, and most importantly to the civil society groups that came out strongly, that pinpointed some trouble spots to the security officials, and they made some vital arrests. And because of that, people went out, they voted peacefully, and they're calm. For me, the losers, and I don't like to gloat when people lose. Yes, because the truth about politics and life is you might lose today and might win tomorrow. You can say, yes, the APC as a party lost. But I think most importantly, they won't have learned the lesson that if you are not united, a house divided itself against itself will not stand. Most of their key stakeholders were in other political parties. At least there were 3 top APC people that were in this governorship race. So they should learn about internal democracy, and they should learn to listen to voices. Because you see, I tell people, when people give you feedback, it is subsidized learning. Take the ones you can take. Not every feedback is a direct criticism. So most times it is subsidized learning. So you should be able to take the ones you can take from the feedback and implement quickly to be able to avoid further catastrophe. But the most important thing is, I just hope and pray that Nigerians will come out en masse to vote whoever their choice is in 2023, because that is what will matter the most.
For Global Business Update, Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning. Let me have a look for Asia Pacific last, mainly lower after a positive start to the week. Investors suggesting Australia's central bank meeting minutes. Hong Kong's index led losses dropping by 1.15%. Mainland China stocks down as well. Australia basically releasing the minutes of its minutes on Tuesday showed the board, so they reckon the rates there are below the sort of neutral rate. Let's move our attention back to China, and holdings of US debt have fallen below by about $1 trillion for the first time since 2010. This is actually showing that obviously the price of things, less capital gain you're going to get from bonds because the price of them is going down. The decline has also been shown to show how Beijing is working to diversify its foreign debt portfolio. TikTok owner ByteDance is being seen to be exploring self-designed chips. This is part of China and ByteDance, hopefully, or at least they hope, becoming more self-sufficient as far as chips are concerned, given there's the enormous amount of the chip shortage that there is in the world at the moment, and of course, to get over supply chain problems which they're suffering from at the moment. Price cap on Russian oil, we've discussed this a number of times. Now, according to the Institute for the Analysis of Global Security, they're saying it's a ridiculous idea. This is basically not how the oil market works. What they're saying is it's like visiting a shop and asking the seller to accept less money for the product being purchased. As far as the United States is concerned, stock futures inching up basically. They fell yesterday, but they've been inching up overnight. Generally speaking, IBM was down a bit, though they beat Wall Street forecasting. Tech company lowered its forecast for cash flow while reporting earnings that beat actually what it said, what Wall Street expected it to do. The other rather important index from the United States is the monthly business home building sentiment. That's plunged 12 points to 55. Earlier, the Dow had quite a bit. Right, Netflix subscribers. Now, their results are coming out today. we know that the Netflix is going to have a lower tier of ads and so on. They're going to crack down on password sharing to invigorate growth, and those manoeuvres, though, won't kick in for a couple of years. So basically, investors are bracing themselves for a bit of a drop in Netflix revenues. Twitter is firing back at Elon Musk. There is this continuing saga. Apparently, there's been some kind of attempt to delay the trial. But in a fresh filing, Twitter's attorneys accused Musk of using delaying tactics. Now, as far as the City of London's concerned, in the UK, it may lose the arm. SoftBank is using what's happening, the political upheavals which you've been talking about earlier this morning, are actually affecting, and SoftBank are actually saying to themselves, you know what, I think we'll have the IPO in Japan. Meantime, don't forget that it's still working though. The biggest offshoot from GSK and Haleon. That is now the biggest personal health company in the world, and its listing is bigger than that last biggest one, Glencore. US job figures out today. Regular pay is falling at the fastest rate since records began, but the unemployment rate 2.8%. Plenty of vacancies around, people not to fill them. Now, you were talking about the UK leadership race. Mordenson Truss now in second place. Badenoch now basically, Kemi's being seen now as a sort of kingmaker, which you mentioned before in the programme. Truss has gained a bit of ground on Mordaunt, and Rishi Sunak is still out there as the favourite. Would you actually want that job? I don't think I would. I think it's going to be really, really difficult. As far as the energy market in the UK is concerned, this is quite a good one for the City of London. Bill Perkins has opened a London office because he's saying that the market here has gone absolutely crazy. Their company in the United States is called Skylar. They're opening Skylar Energy Associates in London to try to understand what's happening in the market. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. Big speech in London, in the City of London, the Mansion House. The new Chancellor, Nadim Zahawi, is probably going to say basically what Rishi Sunak been saying, been endorsing Sunak's policies when he was Chancellor, now of course in the leadership race. And finally, oil prices have been exploding a lot higher. Brent crude and WTI. Overnight, Gazprom declared a force majeure on some European customers, refusing to supply them. Nord Stream has now stopped. Biden has returned empty-handed from the UAE and Saudi. So we're looking at Brent. I've got the latest figures now at about 106 and 108, around a sort of reasonable resistance point there. Just above $100 a barrel, but exploding overnight. That's the global view.
All right. Isn't this deliberate by Russia? All of a sudden, at first they talked about servicing their stations. Now it's not returned yet. They don't have gas pumping into Europe. I mean, what can other countries do? And the heat is not being felt now because we're not right in the winter season when you bang on need a lot of gas, for heating up and things like that. It's summer, it's very sunny. What can they do? What can the Western nations do? And when are they going to go all in against Russia? Because it's obvious.
Could you possibly? Yeah, I'm having a great deal of difficulty in actually hearing you. The signal is very, very weak indeed. Could you please repeat the question to me?
Okay. It is obvious that Russia is playing a game with this first measures being declared. What can the West do to counter Russia? What are the other alternatives? Open up the coal power plants again like the Germans are doing? What can we do as regards this? That's number one. Number two, sweltering heat in England. Massive repercussions across board for infrastructure. Will that add to the already increasing debt of the UK? I hear roads are melting. I hear expansion joints of train are increasing. What bill will this bring back to the UK and public services in the UK after all of this heat?
I do have to say that I think there's a lot of these stories are exaggerated. Rails are very, very difficult to predict. They do have expansion joints. I'm very sorry. I can't hear. I can't hear you anymore. All I hear is an echo of myself. Would you like to speak to the gallery and ask them to reset the sound controls over this? Can I continue?
Okay, your audio isn't great, but we'll take a break. We'll talk about it tomorrow while we get Rotus in. Thank you so much for your time. We'll go for a quick commercial break, and afterwards, our dependable Rotus gets in here. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the morning show here at Arise News. Our dependable Rotus Adiri is here to give us an African business update. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Rotus.
We should lead with Rufai's question. Good
Yes.
morning, Tunde. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Doctor. Look, I was watching intently that interview you all had with the doctors from the Duchess International Hospital. I actually quickly pulled out this quote from the interview with Dr. Shitabe saying that 600 billion naira leaves Nigeria annually in medical tourism. I mean, that is staggering amount. But this, if we talk about government patronage of Nigerian firms, just, take this mental exercise with me. Imagine if Osibanjo was the candidate of the ruling party, and then he went in to get this procedure. The conversation you just had just a few minutes ago about what needs to happen for the public sector, for medical services, the improvements that need to take place. The whole conversation around government needing to patronize made in Nigeria goods, Nigerian services. I mean, this has amplified it, right? And this interview, really shed a light on it. And yeah, again, I just thought it was a great interview. But those numbers that he puts up, something really does have to be done in terms of, building up Nigerian medical services and improving healthcare. To fuel, Mr. Ifeni talked about that just a few minutes ago. I drove around last night. I bought fuel at about 10 p.m. There were no vehicles, but it was at 170. It was at 170, pretty much all the, and I asked a number of folks, in the Ikorodu is anywhere from 200 to 230. Eric Moore in Surulere is about 185 to 190. Here on the Awolowo Road, it's 170, about 3 or 4 stations. So, in that Guardian article where they're saying that NNPC quietly approves an increase in price, the supply is there. So is this, was it Doctor that asked that, or was it Mr. Ifeni? Is this the new reality? Is this where we are?
I thought we're paying subsidies.
Well, we still are, but at least scarcity is, I mean, if this is, the oil marketers have gotten their way. Our team in Abuja, the Arise TV team in Abuja, only Sunday, all the reports they've been following this intently. The Abuja, they're just openly selling at 185, and it looks like the regulator has just chosen to accept reality and look away. However, that price, though, that's another story. We might be in the middle of a phased movement. Aviation, my goodness. First, Aero suspending their operations due to, saying it's because of maintenance. Too many of their planes are pretty much under maintenance. These are dollar liabilities in terms of getting these planes up to speed as far as maintenance is concerned. So as of tomorrow, they're suspending their services. This is going to impact staff. People are not going to be paid. That is, there are people who depend on the people that work for them. There's a cascading effect here. Asman Air, I mean, there's all types of stuff coming out yesterday. Let's take a look at this tweet from a young lady named Hadiza, saying that she would never fly Asman Air again, that she was going from Kano to Abuja, spent about 11 hours at the airport. A week later from Abuja, 6 hours, 30 minutes. And that, in fact, she was like, let's just go by road. Then there was a response to her tweet, I think Adara, says coming to Kano from Lagos for a 10 a.m. flight, and we just arrived at 10 p.m. Tweeting this right now, we're still not home. That was 12 hours. You have to think about the impact of productivity when you see things like this. Hadiza comes back. Our safety matters. We're not safe by road. We take a flight and get into town late. How sure are we to be safe on our way home? May Allah see us through. Very sad. And then the gentleman responded as well. He said, and this is the part here, a few months ago, these airlines had consultations with various government agencies and threatened a shutdown due to this aviation fuel issue. They appeared like they were winning. I don't know what happened when they just softened and continued status quo. And then Asman responds, and you have to give them credit for just being openly transparent here. Asman responded and said, we totally understand your plight, but the aviation fuel scarcity is eating deep into the airline business in Nigeria. Our best efforts is to mitigate the effect of these challenges on our passengers. Kindly accept our apologies for these experiences. Will be better. Can't really say much more about that. I mean, they just, On bailouts, do you remember the bailouts? Do you remember the 4 billion naira bailouts? I had Alan Onyema, CEO of Airpeace, on the Global Business Report.
Did they get the money?
March 20. Here's what he said about the bailouts. Take a listen.
The truth is that no amount of money given to you at this period will be enough. And nobody has bottomless, resources.
Yeah.
So the thing is, yes, a lot of people said the money was too small. Yes, it's too small because one spare part, one of your engines could gulp the entire 4 billion. One engine is even more than 4 billion. The 4 billion was given to all of us to share. The government was only trying to help us, maybe to see how that could help us, even if it means paying 1 or 2 salaries or that kind of thing.
Yeah, and then finally, the IMF, they've approved a $1 billion credit facility for Tanzania. They've also approved a $260 million loan for Kenya. And that's the African business update for today.
Interesting stuff. Yeah. So we kept on saying it, that the subsidies are not sustainable.
Right?
NNPC, every time we say it, come out and say, oh, we're paying subsidies, and anytime there's fuel scarcity, they say we've got 2.5 billion liters in our storage.
To be fair, Rufai, Emele Kyari has openly said that the fuel subsidies are expensive, and so just to be fair, it's on that side.
We've got 2.5 billion liters in our storage. You don't need to worry about anything. We'll just release, and the marketers would take and put fuel everywhere. Bam. And we keep on saying this.
Right.
Last week, a couple of weeks ago, the marketers came out and said, this is not sustainable, we'll have to increase the price. The next day said, no, those marketers are terrible people. They have no right to say that we have more than enough products. We will shut them down. Those that are recalcitrant, we kick them out.
They did say that, yeah.
All of a sudden, 1 week after, NNPC increases prices 179 naira. What are we kidding with in this country? Sometimes we think this country is like Chucky, right? Like child's play.
Yeah.
We know the problems on ground, and tax leader PwC just said it. The subsidy burden is killing us. It is now obvious that we're not even paying just 5 trillion in subsidies. Because look at the currency effect. Who pays for the effect of the fact that now Naira is 620? Even the pegged market rate.
The parallel market.
On the parallel market. Even the pegged market rate of 415 before
it's now 420.
It's now 420.
Yep.
So who pays for the balance of 5 Naira? And we keep paying subsidies. And that's why you see that there's no money for the states to share. Nothing at all. What's the solution? Pull out the subsidies. But hey, we've got NNPC Co. launching today.
That's right, in Abuja. 9 a.m. Well, it's supposed to be 9 a.m.
9 a.m. But
we'll start later.
Are we still going to see the continuation of this? And you know what shocks me the most?
Yeah.
This was the same government that went on the street in 2012 to protest non-removal of petrol subsidy. Let's keep deceiving ourselves. You know, when we're done, we'll know the country will be for ourselves. Come on, let's do it. 2.5 billion liters is available. Yeah.
Sarcasm is just...
Let me start with the IMF.
Yes. IMF.
Yeah, okay. Tanzania is now talking to IMF. Kenya is talking to IMF.
Oh, they've approved the money.
Yes, well,
they've approved the money for them.
The negotiations continue because, the IMF has its own agenda.
Of course.
It gives conditions.
Of course.
It's not just that you collect the money and you just take off.
Right.
Okay? You left out Ghana. Ghana also has a balance of payments issues.
Yes.
Debt to GDP ratio is very high.
Yep, 70%.
And inflation is almost 30%. It's just a little above 29%. But it's not just these African countries that are looking for help from IMF. Pakistan is looking for between $6 billion to $7 billion. IMF is just saying, okay, don't worry, we would find something for you. Sri Lanka is asking for $5 billion to be able to provide fuel to even keep the country going. So the standard excuse that all these countries give is that, look, the world is in a recession. With the dollar surging, then that creates payment issues for many developing countries who are worst hit by this. But the main danger here is that all these countries, I hope they realize that when they take this IMF aid, IMF support, that there are also implications because you have to pay back. There are issues in terms of governance in many of these countries, not least in Tanzania or Kenya or even Ghana. In Ghana now, the decision to approach the IMF is adding to social tension. And it's becoming a major issue as the country begins to prepare for the 2024 general election. The people are saying, okay, I thought the Minister of Finance told us Ghana beyond 8. But now, we're despite the e-levy that was imposed, despite the reduction in salary of government workers, see where Ghana is.
Yep.
You know, so and if in Pakistan, the Pakistan example is also worthy. Imran Khan lost his office as prime minister, in part because of economic crisis, and
So till
tomorrow he blames
America.
He blames the IMF. He blames Washington. For removing him from office. And of course, the most recent example is Sri Lanka. So it's not as if there's any free money out there. And I hope that Nigerian leaders will be monitoring what is going on in these countries very closely. If Nigeria has to go and take IMF loan at any point, and then we're still groaning now. By then, we will all probably, be in need of urgent, attention. That's one. As for aviation aero contractors, the oldest airline in the country. Now, the statement by aero contractors identifies the problem, foreign exchange problem, high cost of aviation fuel. Okay, you mentioned maintenance, which is also interesting because at the time, Nigeria used to be the hub for aviation, for maintenance, for repairs, at least in West Africa. They have a big infrastructure right here at the Murtala Mohammed Airport, which has been abandoned. Now, the reality, of course, is that many of these our airlines, some of them don't have more than 2 or 3 aircrafts. And it's not just because of aviation fuel, they really don't have the capacity. And then on top of it all, they detain you unnecessarily. It used to be that people used to go to banks in Nigeria with small mattresses and mats to sleep, half of the day to be able to get attention. Now they go to airports with mats because you don't know when your flight will be called, and the hostesses, the hosts and hostesses, they really don't care. Customer service is poor. So all of this adds to the agony of the average Nigerian. But the bigger point that you made is about the costs to the economy.
Okay.
How much we lose with people just hanging around, not being able to pursue their daily obligations.
Do you support increasing in prices of tickets to reflect the increase that the costs that the airlines have? The airlines have to increase their prices.
Well,
right now, tickets are still going for 55,000 naira to fly around.
No, I don't know what class you fly.
No, I fly economy, doctor. I fly economy class.
But the tickets...
Ordinary Nigeria. He doesn't even have tickets at 55,000 naira. After that, we say he's ordinary Nigeria. You see how their sins are coming out. You see how they are being reviewed. He doesn't even know ticket is 55,000. He's a big man. No, thank God that we caught Dr. Abati today.
Because I know that after the airline operators of Nigeria, there is a group called that. About a few months ago.
How long is chair?
Yeah, they said the airfare base will be about 55,000. But, they sell more than that.
Yeah.
You can buy a ticket in the morning, maybe for 55,000, one way. 1 hour, 2 hours later, down the line, they may tell you it's already 120,000, and that's economy. But some people try to be to play safe. They buy like 2 weeks ahead, which the airlines also say is not profitable for them.
Right. So I guess we're all in agreement, are we?
I mean, they're going to have to do what they're going to have to do.
All right. Yeah.
But you know what's really irritating? I'm sorry, I have to say the apology that was posted on Twitter by Asman.
You need to get on Twitter.
It's commendable.
Tundu, I cannot. Get on Twitter, Tundu.
No,
we need to start a campaign. Get Tundu on Twitter.
I'm the most antisocial person ever. Even social media is too much socializing for me. Yeah, it's really important that they apologize, but wouldn't it be better, surely, if we just advertise the time for the flight rather than misleading people? You're not going anywhere at 10 a.m. So just tell people come at 8 p.m. Isn't that? But
there could be more. The thing is, there's fewer flights, so they're using fewer planes to try to get it through as many routes as possible.
Then be transparent. Don't pretend you are offering 6 flights a day when you know you're only going to do 2.
With 2 aircraft.
Transparent.
But it's not just Asma and aero contractors. Ibom Air
Yeah.
has also announced that there will be disruptions
Yeah.
in the services that they provide, simply because they say no aviation flight.
And another thing, very quick point. We do not want to compromise safety of flights because these airlines are cutting costs.
Exactly.
So that's another
increase the
thing.
price,
Yeah, so another thing needs to be.
And that's why it just has to be said. I don't know how we're going to do it,
Raise prices.
but we have to raise prices. I mean, it makes business sense. I'm not going to come here and sit and talk like a socialist. I'm not. I mean, it makes only business. I'm sorry, but I'm not a socialist.
But like 10 minutes ago, there was something entirely different being said. What's going on here?
Everybody's being unveiled today.
Free marketeer.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
truth of the matter is,
Yeah.
free market capitalism, because that's the only way we can boost the sustainability of every economy in the world.
Right.
Even China, that lies to the high heavens as a socialist country, we all know China is very free market.
Yep.
All right? Because if you put everything within control, it can't provide wealth.
Well, with some restrictions,
Yeah, with
US
some-
companies
you
that
get-
can't operate in China and all that stuff. Yeah.
So
yeah.
the prices have to go up. But the question is, when the prices go up, does it assure the availability of aviation fuel? No,
but it does help the profit margins of the plane. So Aero says it's because of maintenance, because there's fewer planes locked up in maintenance.
If it helps the profit margin of the plane, and the people can't just get aviation fuel, because if don't forget, somebody promised them aviation fuel.
That is true.
Has that person fulfilled his promise?
Yeah, well.
Somebody promised them aviation fuel at the point to cushion the effect, but has the promise been fulfilled? Secondly, has it gotten to the point in this country where we now have to subsidize aviation fuel too?
Well, no.
We can't do that.
We can't do that,
obviously.
yeah.
So since Putin is not ready to stop the war in Russia and Ukraine, there's uncertainty as regards aviation fuel. Our forex is going like a yo-yo everywhere. Then, once we start increasing, are we going to continue to increase the price?
Right.
Or the government that, as we speak today, doesn't have money, will have to meet halfway as regards aviation prices.
Right.
So that's to show you
boxed in.
We are boxed in.
Yeah.
We're in a desperate situation, and I think it's only important for government to even come out,
as Asman did, and just be open.
No, they are halfway open. I still insist they have to be transparent about their flight schedule.
I think
don't
the government should
say you
even,
have all these flights when you don't.
I think the government should even come out and give us a state of the economy address.
Well,
if possible.
Don't hold your breath.
I know I'm not going to hold my breath for that, but I think if possible, state of the economy address, so that we even know where we are.
Right.
Because you see, we keep mitigating it. People are talking in silos, so probably the minister says this tomorrow, the NMPC says this tomorrow. We need to have a cohesive force that says, okay, this is where we are, and this is our roadmap of getting out of it. Right. Look at what they did in Ghana.
Yeah.
They had to cushion the effect by, they know they don't have the money.
But they still said
But they had to
the
put a cost of living allowance for 15%.
Right.
Because it's biting hard.
Right.
And at a country where you're having inflation, because the NLC have not even started that. Because NLC, very soon, might even be asking for
they're doing the ASU strike now.
They might even ask for a pay raise.
Right.
You know why I'm saying that? Because the minimum wage agreed upon, inflation has eaten it off.
Well, subsidies are also eating it
and
off
subsidy
too.
has eaten it off too.
The impact on the federation account.
I think they will.
So
and they're going to have to.
They will have to ask for a pay raise. And we all remember what happened, like Dr. Bati cited very well yesterday, to the cost of living allowance crisis that led to a strike in the days of Pamakelomodu in the 40s in this country. Because if you look historically, those circumstances remain the same.
Yeah.
We had just finished fighting the Second World War, which Nigeria took part being a colonial nation under Britain. A lot of our resource was taken by Britain to fight the Second World War. There was scarcity of resource, there was scarcity of salt and the likes, there was scarcity of every material, and it jacked up cost of living.
Right.
And there was a monumental strike in this country in 1945. We are there again. There's another war, Ukraine and Russia crisis happening. Cost of living, coupled with COVID-19 and all of that.
Well, I think government is just as perplexed as the average Nigerian is.
Our leaders, doctor.
Yeah.
Don't say that.
No,
It's
they are overwhelmed.
Oh, okay, yes, I'll take that one.
They are overwhelmed. Okay, let's use that. And for those who are thinking that a miracle will happen under this administration, the remaining
6 months, 7 months.
Yeah, less than 1 year that is remaining. I don't think that this government is going to bother. So that's why we keep saying that we need to remind ourselves with regard to subsidy. President Buhari, in that
your exclusive interview
with Bloomberg, no, the one with Bloomberg.
Okay, yeah.
He said that those who are saying remove subsidy, well, are they aware that that's just theory? Because if you remove subsidy, there will be consequences.
Chaos.
Right?
That's
pure chaos. And I don't think that this administration wants to preside over any form of chaos. What they will do is just postpone the evil day, hand over all of these issues to whoever is going to become the next president of Nigeria. Right. And that's why, look, I don't envy whoever emerges as the next president.
Right.
Because that person is coming to deal with a whole load of issues. Yep. Now, this same administration, some of the key actors in this administration, they were the ones that sponsored the pepper soup fiesta and the jollof rice jamboree against the Jonathan administration's, plan to remove subsidy, to deregulate the downstream sector. They said occupy Nigeria. Right. Many of them occupied the Ojota Park. But we have gone full circle now, 360 degrees. Yeah. And they have no clue as to what to do about it. So those who are saying they want to be president, well, there are big issues on the table to deal with. Yep. Would the next administrators be ready to face the consequences? I doubt. But in the meantime, it is the people that will suffer. Now you are not sure that you can travel by air. During the last Hajj exercise, right? There were persons who observed their own Hajj at Aminu Kano International Airport in Kano. Some of them just dressed up and said, well, if we cannot make it to Saudi Arabia, we might as well do our pilgrimage. Right. I don't know whether that is a valid form of pilgrimage or not. But the issue was that persons were there. There was no aircraft to airlift them. And the standard excuse, about aviation fuel, even the Saudi Arabian authorities, they had to extend the deadline for persons to arrive for Hajj. As of the day of the Eid al-Kabir, some people were still in Nigeria here. After people had climbed Mount Arafat and come down. So this is how this thing affects all of us one way or the other. I wouldn't be surprised very soon.
What about the regulator? So to your point now, this issue, to Dr. Antunde, the point you're saying that you have to be transparent, show the flights. Where does the regulator come in punishing airlines with penalties if, as Hadiza's tweets and so on?
But the regulator is handicapped. I'll give you a clear.
Yeah, but somebody has to compel the airlines to be transparent. Yeah.
I once had this ordeal where 7 or 6 p.m. flights, I didn't leave until 11:30, 12, and I got on 1 or 2
in the morning
to Lagos from Asaba. And I complained bitterly to the regulators. In fact, the regulators acknowledged that they have gotten a couple of complaints.
A couple?
Yes, a lot of complaints as regards airlines, not keeping to time and all of that.
Right.
But when they started extrapolating the matter and bringing out those factors, the rebuttal of the airline was the uncertainty of aviation fuel. In fact, it was so copious to the extent that some of the airlines claimed that they had gotten a supplier that said, aviation fuel is available, we'll deliver at so time. All of a sudden, they said it wasn't available again. So that's how very, poignant the problem is of aviation fuel. So it's not even about just getting aviation fuel. It's the uncertainty that follows it. The fact that somebody tells you, okay, I have this today, then I'm out of stock the next minute.
Yeah, then slash the number of flights.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
They have to. But the problem is those people who then cannot catch a flight and now have to risk their lives traveling by road.
Which is it also that easy to slash the number of flights?
No,
even in the UK, at the Heathrow Airport, Emirates is fighting. British Airways is fighting, saying, look, the airport authority cannot tell us to slash flights.
No, but nobody should impose it on them. The airlines need to do that and increase the ticket price. They have to. You can't have people sitting in the airport for 12 hours.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News for an update on the COVID-19 pandemic. Adeswa Amoran is here with us. Good morning, Adeswa.
Good morning, Tunde. Great to be here. Good morning, Dr. Abati, and good morning, Rufai.
Morning, this one.
And Tunde, I was just thinking we need to set up a committee to investigate this gentleman. So many unearthing things this morning. Rufai being a socialist, let's make sure he's not one of those champagne socialists. And perhaps Rotus and Dr. Abati not having private jets.
At least I'm not a socialist.
Well.
I mean,
Okay,
but I have
great.
social tendencies.
Now,
I
let's talk
care
about-
for people. Seriously. But I'm not a socialist.
Great. And if the engineers could just help me with the feedback I'm getting. But let's talk about COVID-19 this morning. The Johns Hopkins University tally seems to be experiencing a downtime at the moment. So we do not have the numbers for infections or deaths at the moment. But we do know that vaccination globally stands at 11.8 billion vaccines so far. In Nigeria, the latest bi-weekly epidemiological report shows a decrease in testing. A little above 35,000 samples were tested. That's down from the previous 75,000 samples tested. And out of the 35,000 that were tested in this latest report, there were 1,265 positive results, and that's a 3.6% increase in infections. And those were from 12 states as well as the Federal Capital Territory. Let me tell you that no deaths were also recorded during the period. And from this data, which you have on your screen, we continue to see more positive outbound passengers than inbound travelers to Nigeria. For this period, 133 outbound travelers tested positive as against the 28 inbound passengers that came back positive. Now, with vaccination in Nigeria, the authorities say nearly 60 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been administered to eligible persons in the country, while over 2 million booster doses have been administered since the commencement. Plateau State, in north central of the country, is said to be the most improved state on full vaccination in the last 7 days. They had a 5% improvement in the last 7 days, but the top 5 performing states in Nigeria at the moment remain Nasarawa, Jigawa, Kano, Kaduna, and Osun states in that order. Away from Nigeria, over more than 2 years of this pandemic, solidarity and partnership are still lacking. And that's according to Dr. Ayodele Alakija. She's the co-chair of the African Union's Vaccine Delivery Alliance. In a scarcity assessment, she's also of the opinion that Africa has been deliberately left behind in the fight against this virus through institutional racism, greed, broken global health system. A fundamental problem with the global approach to the pandemic, she says. Well, in an interview with this US-based radio network, Dr. Lakija says it is also not true to say that COVID has not affected Africa, especially in terms of human experience. She says people are dying silently, and many of those deaths are going unrecorded in Africa. And she says as countries such as the US are planning to roll out their 4th doses and variant-targeted vaccines, Africa is not likely to get any of those vaccines anytime soon. Now to North Korea, where the country is saying that it's on the path to finally defuse a crisis stemming from its first acknowledged outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. And that was according to the state news agency yesterday. North Korea says 99.98% of over 4.7 million fever patients. Remember, they're calling it fever in North Korea. That since, we saw this in April, over 4.7 million people. They're now saying almost 99.9% of those people have recovered. However, we don't know how many people have tested positive so far in the country. But the WHO is doubting the claims. The World Health Organization says just last month, the situation was getting worse in North Korea, so it doesn't understand how they are, on a path to diffusing the situation. And finally, several large Chinese cities, including Shanghai, are on their toes due to new outbreaks of coronavirus infections. They are rolling out repeated mass testing or extending lockdowns of millions of residents. Back to you guys.
Okay. In Shanghai, there have been lockdowns in about 16 of the districts in that city of 25 million. And even in Beijing, 2 cases were reported on Sunday. In places like Guangzhou, there are also concerns in places like Lazhou. But you know the approach of the Chinese authorities, zero COVID, and which the state considers dynamic, and which has also been heavily criticized by the West on the grounds that the second largest economy in the world could further cause disruptions if it keeps shutting down different places. But of course, in the whole of that Asian axis, you know, from whether you are talking about New Zealand or Japan, where there are over 17,000 cases per day now, they've seen, the spread of the new variants, constantly mutating, BA4, BA5, BA2.75, and infection rates are going up. So that's the problem. But in China, they're facing it. North Korea, nobody believes North Korea. North Korea says it has a total of about 4.4 million persons who are infected, but that they now have what they call epidemic stability. And WHO is saying, no, that's not true. North Korea is an authoritarian state where the ruler, the maximum ruler, does precisely what he likes, and he lies with statistics. WHO offered to help. It was rejected. The United States promised to help. It rejected all forms of help.